Hakuna Matata, my friend. So let's go out into London. It's night, and I want us to compare the Canon C70 with the Sony A7S III in low light. Not in a studio setting where you have the light, you fix it and don't. No. We want to go out and then just use ambient light, the light of the street, and see how those two cameras, the Sony A7S III, stand against the Canon C70, or let's say the Canon C70 stand against the Sony A7S III. We know already that the Sony A7S III is great in terms of the low light. That's why the S stands for sensitivity. But, the Canon C70 have also something on its sleeve. That's why the DGO is dual gain output, which in fact, what the Canon created by that system is that the highlight is protected, and as well the shadow are protected, so that you get less noise in those two areas. Let's go out and find out. I'm so excited. Let's go. Alright guys, so now we have the Canon C70 and also the Sony A7S III tagged together. The first thing that I'm going to be doing, so we know how both camera how to set up both camera to its optimum, and we know that the Canon C70 have the DGO, the dual gain output, and the Sony A7S III has the dual base ISO. Let's not confuse, base ISO with the DGO. They are not similar. They are not the same thing. The base ISO is just, those two native ISO that the camera has. For example, the Sony A7S III has two base ISO. One is 640 and the other one is 12800 ISO. So that's the two base ISO. But the Canon C70 hasn't got, two base ISO. Absolutely not. It has only one, base ISO, native ISO. That's the 800. But the dual gain output that's the system that the sensor has, the C70 sensor has, is basically the system that can protect the highlight and also protect the shadow. Basically, there's a two part of that. My understanding is this way. There's a two part of the sensor. So one will make sure just the highlight are protected while ignoring the shadow part, and the other one will make sure to protect the shadow and then ignore the highlight. And then when those two will come together so that you get like a clean image where the shadow is protected and also the highlight is protected. That's from my understanding, the essence of the dual gain output of the Canon C70. So they are not similar. It's not the same as a dual base ISO or dual native ISO. I just want to clarify that. And we know as well that the Sony A7S III is very good in low light. But we know that the Canon, according to the Canon C70 is also very good with the dual gain output. So what I'm gonna do first, I'm gonna set them so that we use the best option possible. For the Canon C70, I'm gonna shoot on C-Log 2, starting with the best ISO of 800, and I'm gonna use the maximum format as possible.
so then we can gain the 16 dynamic range. With the Sony A7S free, again, I'm gonna shoot to the maximum, to the best format that the Sony can give. I have the CF Express Type A card, so then we can record in there, and also we're gonna record into S-Log 3. So that's the S-Log that we have. That's the one that is the best, and also we're gonna use the best ISO of the Sony 640. And there is natural light. Right, there's a natural light, so that's the natural light that we're gonna be using. As you asked me to use just the natural light, not the setup light. So you're just gonna use the natural light, and we see which camera perform the best. When we're talking about which camera perform the best, we're talking about like when you use the natural light, what footage will come cleaner, not like digitally, but it come cleaner like cinematic. Yes, comparing is like comparing Apple and Mango. Yeah, the C70 is a cinema camera, and the A7S III is a mirrorless camera. Yeah, we understand. But if I had the FX6, I would have compared them, because it's the same sensor that is in the A7S III that is in the FX6. So basically, we're just comparing those two together. All right, so now we're gonna get into doing some filming with that first base setting and base ISO, and then we increase the ISO, and then we see.
Okay, so here we have the two camera, side by side, camera A and camera B. So do you tell which one is which? Which one is the Canon C70? Which one is the A7S III? So here is the camera A by itself. So could you tell which camera is that? Sony or Canon? Yeah, next one is the camera B. Could you tell which camera has shot this one? Sony or Canon? Alright, here what I done, I have zoomed to 200 just for us to see a little bit better the noise. So that's still camera B, zoom 200. Right, just to see the noise. Here right now, that's camera A. I did zoomed it to 400, and for just to see how noisy the image is. So here is camera B. Again, zoom to 400, and yeah. Alright, so that's camera A, but this time I did apply just basic noise reduction from Final Cut Pro. So you can see the difference. Here the camera B also applied basic noise reduction from Final Cut Pro. So here when it's zoomed to 200 with the noise reduction applied, camera A, you can see the difference. Here 200 zoomed out, camera B with the noise reduction applied, just for us to see how much of the noise is being taken away. Here again, zoom to 400, and with the noise reduction applied, camera A. And next one, that's camera B, noise reduction, zoom to 400. Just from, can you see the difference? Let me know in the comment box below. Alright, so yeah, now those two footage side by side, the camera A and camera B. Could you tell which one is the Canon C70 and which one is the Sony A7S III? Right, so I'm gonna give you like a few seconds. Just write in the comment box below which camera is camera A and which camera is camera B before I will reveal it to you which one. So I'm gonna give you 10 seconds. Now the time is going. So basically, here's the result here. Camera A is the Canon C70 and camera B is the Sony A7S III. Did you did you get it? I mean, did you get it right? So you can see even the difference in terms of the ISO, because the best ISO for the Sony A7S III is 340. The best ISO for the Canon is 800. So you see a little bit lighter the Canon. I am really impressed, no bias here, with the Canon C70 low light capability. The Sony we know already is king or monster or queen of the low light shooting, but the C70, especially the DGO, has basically created an impressive cinema camera with that price tag. You know, the quality of the image is so great, it's so usable. You see them here side by side here. That's the Canon C70, that's the Sony A7S III, just with just little small base noise reduction, and you can see. I mean, honestly, I'm blown away, and I'm confident that I can use, you know, the Canon C70 in a low light setting, and the image just gonna come great. And just using a little bit of bass noise reduction, you know, I will have the footage, and yeah, I mean, let carry on.
Yeah, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna sit down right in the middle of the bridge, and I'm gonna put the camera. There's no light. We're just gonna use, you know, the side light of the bridge, and we see how the image gonna capture. And I know that in that circumstance, most of the time, okay, yeah, we're just about to say, most of the time, the Canon C70 will struggle in terms of autofocus. But what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna turn it into manual focus and then focus on my 7. Then we just wanna capture the footage and then see how the footage will be clean with just with natural light, yeah? All right, let's do that. So we're just recording few seconds just to see. I think both of them will just use manual focus, yeah? So then there's no struggle hunting and all those kind of things. But we just wanna see how much of the image gonna be clean, and we're still shooting the same setting. Best ISO for the Sony A7S III, 640. Best ISO for the Canon C70 at 800. And you'll see that the C70 will be a little bit lighter, because I think like 150 more than 160 or 140 more, 160 more than the Sony A7S III, so it may be lighter. And you know, the f-stop is f2.8 for both. And the lens that I have, because I gone with the C70, I gone with the native lens, yeah, the 28 to 70 native lens 2.0, and the Sony A7S III, I went with the G Master 24 to 70 2.8 as well. So, but I just wanna have like a same f-stop, so then both of them with the 2.8. So yeah, and let's see that which one gonna give you a cleaner image.
So now we know which one is the Canon C70. So that's the Canon C70. You see, like the best ISO is 800, and it's a little bit lighter. And this one is the Sony A7S III, 640, the best ISO, so a little bit, you know, darker. But for me, just to figure out, you know, how the quality of that image in terms of the person. So that's a 200 zoom out, C70, and that's a 200 zoom out, the Sony A7S III. And I think the Sony come a little bit softer, I think, when you zoom out. So that zoom out 400, the Canon C70 without noise reduction, yeah. And that is 400 zoom out, Sony A7S III. Because I think the Canon is DCI and the Sony is Ultra HD, so you can see, you know, the size when you zoom out. So that's side by side, Canon C70 in your right, the screen, but that's the Canon C70 with the noise reduction, you know, applied, and 100% zoom. So you see how clean it is. So that's the Sony A7S III with the noise reduction apply, only bass noise reduction apply. So you can see as well. So that's a zoom 200, the Canon C70 with the noise reduction apply. Look at the image. So this the Sony A7S III with the noise reduction apply, 200 zoomed out. Let's see. Right now is like 400 zoom out. That's a Canon C70 with the noise reduction applied. I mean, the image is still there. It's very useful. So that's the Sony A7S III, 400 with the noise reduction applied. Just the base noise reduction. I did not go extreme. So that's side by side. You can see with the noise reduction. And yeah, the Canon come a little bit lighter. Yeah, even I think even you looking at the, I mean, before that the test before we just looking at the architect, just looking at the the environment like that. But this one there's a human being, there's a person there, and the focus was on me, and we just wanna find out, are we losing the quality in terms of the low light? And it's really impressive how the Canon C70 hold itself against the Sony A7S III. We know the Sony A7S III in terms of the low light is one of the best camera there. But I am really pleased with the way that the Canon C70 managed itself. I think in terms of the cinema line camera, I think it's against the top there, because the footage is clean. The footage is very, very usable with just a little noise reduction. Just look at that little noise reduction and what we got. So here they have side by side with the Sony A7S III. And also, the base ISO, the fact that the base ISO of the Canon is 800 has played a little bit in like you gain like one stop plus in the light. And the DGOs play a massive role here, where the shadow is protected.
What are we gonna do? We're gonna change position. I'm gonna ask my good friend Delix, to come sit here. And what we're gonna do, so let's increase the ISO to see. So I'm gonna increase, because we know that the Sony A7S III has a dual base ISO. One is 650, 640, and the second base ISO is like 1200 and 800. 12800, that's the second base ISO. And when you push to that, it's just gonna be amazing. So I'm gonna ask my good friend Delix to come sit here. Now he's behind the camera. So today it's gonna be in front of the camera, and then we see, and then we raise it, and then we see how the difference.
So here the setting. So we move away from the base ISO of 800 and 640 to start with 4000 as a ISO. And we're gonna shoot that, and then we see. So yeah, that's the Canon C70 at 400 ISO, and the rest of the settings are the same. And that is the Sony A7S III at 4000 ISO. So no noise reduction, just as it come out of the camera. Here is the Canon C70 at 200 zoom. You can see the noise a little bit. That is the Sony A7S III zoomed to 200%, and you see a little bit of the noise there, but it's not that bad. That is Canon C70 zoomed out to 400, and you can see a little bit of the noise all over the place. And that is the Sony A7S III zoomed out to 400. You still a little bit of noise there, but it's not that bad. Now that's side by side, just 100% no zoomed out. Now I just added a little bit of noise reduction. That's the Canon C70, just a little bit of noise reduction, clean. Here, that's the Sony A7S III, a little bit of noise reduction, no zoom out, clean. All right, so let's zoom it out. So we zoom out to 200. You can see that with that little noise reduction, the C70 is just clean. It's wonderful. And that's the Sony A7S III. Zoom out 200 just for you to see the level of the noise. All right, let's look at it. Let's zoom out. So that's we zoom out 400, right? Just for you to see what is the level of the noise. That's the C70. Right, the image, that's the Sony A7S III. And as I said before, like the Sony A7S III Ultra HD, so you can see the difference in terms of the quality. So that's side by side, right? Both of them, 100%, they're just clean. Yeah, beautiful. So that's the Sony A7S III. No, that's the Canon C70 with the noise reduction. So that here is the Sony A7S III noise reduction. Okay, so that's side by side of the two. You can see just the Canon C70, that's the ISO is 4,000. Did I say 400 before? Sorry, the ISO is 4,000 for the Sony and also for the Canon. And look at the Canon, it's up there with the Sony A7S III. It's really impressive. And we know the Sony is a low light king or queen. So here is side by side. I'm really impressed. I am impressed indeed. Alright guys, so let's move to the second base ISO of the Sony A7S III, which is 12800. So I'm having the same setting in terms of the ISO. For the Canon C70, I'm going to set it up to 12800. And also for the Sony A7S III, I'm going to set it up to 12800. And also mind you, that the Canon C70 has no dual base ISO. As I said in the beginning, only one native ISO is 800. So anything above 800 is not a second base ISO. What does that mean? It means that when we change from 800, so then we expect the noise ratio to increase. We get more noise in. When we increase the ISO more than 800, what I'm trying to say is that we're gonna get more noise into the footage. So we're gonna see now, we're gonna compare when we increase it to the second base ISO of the Sony A7S III, which we should expect to have a cleaner image, how the Canon C70 gonna match it. Is it the Canon C70 image gonna be cleaner as well? And if not, is it with basic noise reduction are we gonna get close to the Sony A7S III? So we'll find out. Alright, so that's the Canon C70 and the ISO is 12800. And you look at the image, it's so lit. So that's the Sony A7S III with the second base ISO. You see the second base ISO, how the Sony is clean, no noise at all. So here I just zoomed it out to 200. That's the Canon C70. You can see, a little bit of noise there, but it's not that bad. So that's the Sony A7S III, zoomed out to 200, and there's no noise. And that's the aim of the second base ISO, clean. So that's the Canon C70, zoomed out to 400. And we can see the noise there, but let's see. So that's the Sony A7S III, zoomed out to 400, but so far we didn't apply any noise reduction yet. So here, side by side, sorry for my voice. As I said in the beginning, I have a COVID, so I'm just recovering from COVID, so I lost my voice. All right, so now that's a Canon C70 with the noise reduction applied. Just a little bit, just the base one. Perfect. So that's the Sony A7S III. I did also apply noise reduction just to see. It's still clean. So that's I zoomed it out. 200. The Canon C70 with the noise reduction. You can see it's a little bit noise there, but it's not that bad. The image is really usable. That's the Sony A7S III. Zoom out 200. We can see a little bit of nothing. The image is clean, It's just more softer. So that's the Canon C70. Zoom out to 400. Now we can see, the noise. Yeah. So if I don't know if I need to go a little bit extreme, but yeah. So that's the Sony A7S III. I mean, no one's gonna zoom out to 400 to use it so far, anyway. So that's the side-by-side footage of the both of them at 12800 ISO. Yeah. So that's the Canon C70, right, with the ISO 12800. Right, and that's the Sony A7S III with the ISO, 12800. That's the second base ISO of the Sony. I think the matching really nice. I think the Canon holds very, very well, even changing. The one thing that I would like to say is that, the noise from the Canon is kind of consistent. It's not like you're moving from one and then the noise ratio became like completely different or worsen and all those kind of things. There's kind of consistency in those type of noise. And I think, the grain is almost look like cinematic grain, noise aside. So for example, if you look at Dulux, the Dulux still, that is not zoomed out, so just 100%. Yeah, it is really nice. It's really clean. So look at it. So now that is the Sony A7S III. All right. The fact that the Canon is DCI and the Sony is Ultra HD, you can see the pixel, the difference in the size when you zoom out. So I think Canon is coming on top, Yeah, so you can look at even this footage. Right, you come close to it. So yeah, I think I wouldn't say that the Canon C70 is low light king, but I think the dual gain output play a massive role here in terms of giving you a cleaner image in terms of the low light. Because in terms of the low light, one thing that you cannot get like a absolutely clean image with no noise at all. Right? If you do that, it means that you digitally the noise in the camera, and when you get that, sometimes you lose the quality of that image. So look at the plane that I managed to get from both camera. Right, yeah, you can see the noise grain there, but it's very usable, image is here. So what is my conclusion in that? Yeah, I mean, my conclusion is that the Canon C70 is really impressive camera, and it holds itself very, very well even in low light. And that when there is a light, when the camera can see contrast and the image is just beautiful. Look at that. The image is just beautiful. And I would not be afraid to take the camera, go out there in the dark and raise up my ISO and film with the Canon C70, as I'm confident with the Sony A7S III that when I get the camera, I go there, I have 2 base ISO. I can start with 640, and now that I can just raise it to the second base ISO of 12800, and I can get cleaner and lit image. I will be also really confident with the Canon C70, going there in the dark and film without hesitation that I'm gonna get a clean image, and also that with just a little bit of noise reduction and tweak here and there, I will get a fantastic image. Look at this. Look at this image. It's not clean. Could you imagine that? You would think that was filmed with the Sony A7S III in those base ISO, but it's filmed by the Canon C70. And also, I'm just changing the ISO here. You can see changing the ISO, reducing the ISO to 800. And also, I think the thing that you also need to take into consideration is that the Sony A7S III, those 2 base ISO, and when you move to the base ISO, it looks like something within the camera internally kind of reduce the noises, like digitally noise reduction happening within the camera to get you, that, clean, noise-free image. But with the Canon C70, it's still, you don't think that something is happening within that, so you don't feel that digitally noise reduction happening there, and also that the images still stay sharp compared to the Sony A7S III, which you feel that there is softness in the image, right? When you go to the base ISO, you will see you lose a little bit of sharpness. I don't know if you can see it from this image here, but you lose a little bit of sharpness in that. So I think you should not be afraid to use your Canon C70 in low light situation, because you will get a decent image, I'm telling you. And with just a little bit of editing, you can go from a good image to a great footage. All right, so guys, that's what I have for you today, and thank you. I hope that you find something useful on this video, and if so, please do like this video and also subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to talk to you in my next video. Bye. Ciao.